Good morning. Distinguished guests, parents, trustees, benefactors, masters, and especially presumptive graduates of the Roxbury Latin School, I have the honor of welcoming you to the 375th closing exercises of the oldest school in continuous existence in North America. Given the history of the school, of its continuity, and of its distinction, at least in part, this ceremony today is intended to affirm the principles upon which this school's tradition has been built, and to acknowledge that another successful cycle of serving the boys of Greater Boston has come to a close. On Wednesday of this week, we signaled the conclusion of the 2019-2020 school year for our underclassmen with the annual Prize Day. Today is also about the conclusion of another fruitful year. But more important, it is about the conclusion of the passage of a particularly noteworthy first class. You will hear plenty from them and about them later in the ceremonies. Suffice it to say that there is plenty of grist for the mill. It would be strange, even this early in the ceremony, for me not to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Here we are together, but apart. Given the generational challenge of the pandemic, we find ourselves unable to do the thing we most want to do, to gather together cheek by jowl in Ruminier Hall, a place of so many important events in the life of this class and in the life of our school. We have wanted to shake hands, to raise a glass, to give a hug, to compliment, to thank, to wish well, to remember, to laugh, to cry. We wanted to do all that in person. Both our students and your loving families have anticipated this season, a fitting culmination every year of a job well done, a journey fulfilled. Instead, a scourge beyond the power of any of us to effect has shut down what we anticipated, what was deserved. Given the understandable disappointment all of us feel at what could not be, I offer my deep gratitude for your understanding and your support. None of us could have anticipated the trials and tribulations of these times. No one has pointed a finger or uttered a discouraging word. Rather, like a family, we together have borne the brunt of this historic specter and done what we could to make the best of it. For 4 weeks, these seniors finished out their classes remotely, and for 4 weeks, they pursued their senior projects. In half of these instances, boys had to conceive of different projects from what they had originally dreamed of. That said, they have missed events and celebrations that ought to have marked their concluding days at school. You might imagine I might emphasize what has been heartening about all this. I am moved by your collective resilience, by your proportionality, by counting whatever blessings we have, and there are plenty of these. When we send our boys off into the world, even if that means to cozy college campuses, we hope they will be strong, that they will embody values we care most about, that they will be honest and kind and thoughtful and forgiving. Usually we have had to wait to see if our graduates would honor these noble aspirations. Usually they do, but it often takes a while for those values to be acted out. Not so for the class of 2020. Indeed, in your goodwill and understanding and grit and grace and gratitude, you have evinced all that we could hope for you, all that I and my colleagues hope to have caused you to feel and to want to do and to be. And it's fair to say that you are bigger men with character traits that transcend what would have been easy blaming and feeling unjustly injured. Much of the reason you are able to feel this way has been the understanding, though disappointed, examples of your parents. To all of you, boys and parents, goes my thanks and congratulations for knowing that a time like this requires us to behave like a family, having each other's back, each doing his or her part, and loving each other enough to imagine brighter days ahead, a hopeful denouement in which again we can truly celebrate the ties that so undeniably bind us, one to another. Let me dwell just a few minutes more on you parents and siblings and other relatives. None of these boys would have achieved this graduation without their families and especially their faithful parents. To all of you who sit proudly in those seats today goes our admiration and gratitude for having passed on your DNA in especially consequential ways to these unsuspecting lads. More important, I am grateful to you for having the foresight to imagine that your son in Roxbury Latin would make for a satisfying match. Once having come to that conclusion, you signed on to an unusual partnership, one that not only made demands on your time, talent, and treasure, but in all likelihood also presumed your attendance at countless athletic contests in all kinds of weather, even when your son didn't play as much as you thought he should have. You showed up at a half dozen back-to-school nights, as a volunteer for athletic teas, as a worker at the yard sale and parent auxiliary socials, as a host at admission open houses, as a presenter in classes or at hall, and always as a tireless chauffeur, launderer, and activities director. In exchange for that, your son occasionally helped you with the remote control for cable TV. The remarkable contemporary poet Billy Collins captured the imbalance of giving between parents and children in The Lanyard. Here it is. The other day, I was ricocheting slowly off the blue walls of this room, moving as if underwater from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor, when I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard. No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send one into the past more suddenly, a past where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid long, thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift for my mother. I had never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one, if that's what you did with them, but that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted spoons of medicine to my lips, laid cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the air light and taught me to walk and swim, and I, in turn, presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here is clothing and a good education. And here is your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones, and teeth, and 2 clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is the lanyard I made at camp. And here I wish to say to her now is a smaller gift, not the worn truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the 2-toned lanyard from my hand, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. I'm not sure that anything we or you boys will offer will ever make us even, for all you parents have done. Through all the joys and occasional tribulations of your sons' RL careers, you have supported not just your fortunate sons, but also the noble mission of this school, especially for entrusting your most precious treasures to us for the past half dozen years. We are greatly in your debt, as well should your sons be. The other consequential partners in this miraculous odyssey are the masters. These remarkably talented, impressively dedicated men and women have given of themselves freely and lavishly on behalf of the growth and development of these young men. As teachers, coaches, advisors, cajolers, mentors, friends, this faculty has asked a great deal of their students. In doing so, they have honored the remarkable potential of each one of these boys and have modeled for them lives of consequence and character and scholarly striving. Especially during this spring, this group of committed men and women have totally altered their approaches in order to continue to serve the best interests of these remarkable boys. What a jolt this has been, but how remarkably, how beautifully this faculty has stepped up. To my colleagues who have done this transformative work, who have heeded the call of this occasionally thankless business, who have decided to make their professional lives in this little nursery, I offer my thanks and my congratulations on having shepherded through another bumper crop, the memorable class of 2020. Would the faculty please stand, even in your homes, and be recognized? Of the other essential partners in the success of the class of 2020 and the continuity of the school, I have so far said nothing, But were it not for the distinguished men and women on the Board of Trustees and their predecessors, none of us would have any kind of opportunity either to teach or to learn at Roxbury Latin. As the great stewards of the school, they have offered us the chance to create a living city, a community of masters and scholars that is unmatched. They, in their planning and sustaining, have made it possible for us to be an affordable, accessible school, a meritocracy in which one's social position or economic status is irrelevant, but where one's character and academic promise are essential. They have provided us with facilities and other resources that have allowed us to uphold RL's distinctive mission and to thrive. The trustees honor their lineage and make possible the school John Eliot envisioned. To them, of course, go our thanks.
The following is a reading from the book of Proverbs. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and abundant welfare will they give you. Let not loyalty and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them about your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. So you will find favor and good repute in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not rely on your own insight. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Happy is the man who finds wisdom, and the man who gets understanding. For the gain from it is better than the gain from silver, and its profit better than gold. She is more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand, in her left are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. My son, keep sound wisdom and discretion. Let them not escape from your sight, and they will be life for your soul and adornment for your neck. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it.
The second reading is from Matthew's Gospel. And seeing the multitudes, he went up unto a mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they that hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they that are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets who were before you. Ye are the salt of the earth. But if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under the foot of men. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set upon a hill cannot be hid.
Dominus vobiscum, et cum spiritu tuo, oremus. Pater noster, qui es in caelis, sanctificator nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in caelo et in terra, panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimitte nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Nam tuum es regnum et potentia et gloria in saecula. Amen. Almighty and merciful God, we thank you for giving us this moment, this time to acknowledge and account for. Our hearts are glad today, for we both remember all that the class of 2020 has meant to this place and the promise that they represent as they go forth from it. For 375 years, you have blessed this school and given its stewards and masters who have shaped and inspired countless generations. Make us worthy of our heritage and true to the promise it implies as we all dedicate our lives to the service of others. Amen. As we gather on this significant day, many of you are here to salute individual boys. But this is a corporate event, one intended to celebrate a notable collection of boys. That said, what of today's main attraction, the great class of 2020? Of course, there is much to say and too little time in which to say it. This is a class that until this day of graduation has made their mark. They have often delighted us, occasionally maddened us, frequently amazed us, and often gave us hope. They are a talented bunch, but more important, a bunch that consistently and freely have shared their considerable gifts with the rest of us. Having run the race, having finished the course, they have not simply satisfied our rigorous requirements for them as scholars and people. Indeed, they have also given us reassuring glimpses of the men they are becoming, and we like what we see. Who are these boys? Where do they come from? What have they done? Why are we so proud of them? There are 52 members of this class. You came to us originally and have every morning since, even on slightly snowy ones, from all over Greater Boston. You came on buses and trains and in carpools, occasionally even on boats, from Boston, Beacon Hill, Belmont, Brookline, Chestnut Hill, Cohasset, Dedham, Dover, and from Hyde Park, Jamaica Plain, Mansfield, Milton, Natick, Needham, Newton, Norwell, Norwood, Plymouth, Randolph, Roslindale, Scituate, Sharon, Walpole, Wellesley, Weston, West Roxbury, Westwood, and Winchester. You can get here from there. And before that, you came from as far away as Northampton, Massachusetts, Newark, New Jersey, Hinsdale, Illinois, Houston, Texas, San Francisco, California, and even London, England. You entered RL from 40 different sending schools, public, parochial, and private. 39 of you have been with us since Class 6. 1 joined in Class 5. 11 joined the Happy Band for Class 4, and 1 of you joined in Class 3. You came with interests and talents galore, sometimes more than you or we knew what to do with, but for the most part, you have found this fertile territory for testing your mettle and showing your stuff. You have been stimulating, challenging classroom companions and remarkably earnest in your pursuit of perfection and the truth. You are academically talented. Your tested acumen and results on the SAT and the AP exams place you near the top of RL's all-time most accomplished test takers and in the top 1% of American high school students. You are bright. You cared. You worked hard. Thankfully, all of this horsepower has been put to good use and in service to an academic program that is rigorous and stimulating and given life by this class's discipline, engagement, and brilliance. You have brought many other gifts to the party as well, and thankfully, the RL programs in Model United Nations, debate, drama, music, and athletics have benefited from the variety, intensity, and reliability of this class's generous commitment. You have been good actors, composers, directors, stage managers, and technicians in such comedies and melodramas as The Iliad, An Evening of Scenes, The Arabian Nights, Dogs, Hamlet, Cahoots, Macbeth, It Can't Happen Here, The Comedy of Errors, and A Few Good Men. Members of this class have been featured in, technically assisted with, or performed in the pit, orchestra, in musicals, Oliver, and Newsies. All told, more than 24 of you boys appeared in or worked backstage on a play or musical during your time here. 28 of you sang in the Glee Club, and 6 in the dazzling Latonics. You not only enchanted local audiences, but took your shtick on the road to Puerto Rico, where Senor Guerra's parents wanted to adopt you, to the Washington, D.C., Virginia area, where snow weighed down the greeting cherry blossoms, and to the glitz and glam of L.A. and Southern California. Sadly, you didn't get to Austria, where I'm certain audiences would have been slapping their lederhosen in appreciation. A number of you are also first-class instrumentalists, playing in numerous student recitals, in our own string ensembles, in jazz band, and 6 years ago, one of you helped launch the select, now first-rate, jazz combo. One of you is an Eagle Scout. The rest of you are not. You heeded the founder's vision and you served. You gave your time and shared your talents on behalf of others for Habitat for Humanity builds in Boston and cooking and serving the Sunday lunch at Haley House. You taught West Roxbury senior citizens how to use computers through the technology tutoring program, and you faithfully cooked brunch at the Warren Street residence. You also led the school's fundraising efforts this year: Medicine for Humanity, the Maru Apula Orphan Scholarship, the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, the Walk for Hunger, Haley House, and Habitat for Humanity all were the beneficiaries of over $22,000 raised. You amazingly built 76 beds. 76. Now that's the spirit. You were great volunteers and willing big brothers to a gaggle of adoring Sixies. You were the teaching staff of the Sixie seminars, intentional, effective opportunities to share what you know about character, the ways of RL, and who you are with impressionable, adoring Sixies. And for the 8th year, as part of the Awe Watkwe Wale Society, you served as pallbearers for a number of our poor, forgotten neighbors who, without you, would have left this mortal coil unnoticed. You gave freely of yourselves. You did the right thing, even when no thanks could be offered you. You extended your global quest to meaningful time spent in Cadiz and Caen. You continued in our effort to teach and inspire leadership. As usual, you engaged earnestly and optimistically in an effort that required trust and flexibility and good thinking. 2 of you had perfect attendance. The rest of you did not. And what of your athletic fortunes? Not only did you participate widely, but you did so with decidedly positive results. 47 of you earned varsity letters, and you earned 225 letters over your high school years. 4 of you are 18-season athletes. 1 is a 12-season athlete, having entered in 9th grade, all having contributed to a team every season you have been here at the school. And this year alone, 4 out of 6 varsity teams earned records of 500 or better, and I can only imagine that our spring teams would have been better yet. Teams across all grades this year compiled an excellent record of 194, 83, and 17. That means if RL were a batter, he would be hitting 659. You were well coached and you had some fine God-given gifts, but mainly you gave it your all, trying hard, sacrificing for the team, and representing your school with sportsmanship and class. This class will be remembered surely as scholars of the highest order, capable of producing fine works of art, generators of impressive publications, 2 captivating issues of Forum, 5 fine issues of funny, provocative tripods, even a magnum opus of an ultimate virtual tripod, and an evocative grand finale, the yearbook. 30 of you debated, and 27 of you participated in the Model United Nations program. You debated successfully in your various classrooms, but more impressively, winning competitions all over the world. And what are you thinking? You are a lively, eclectic bunch of thinkers, quick to engage in a spirited debate on virtually any topic, and often responsible even in massing the data to support a particular position. Lest anyone think the notoriously liberal RL faculty guilty of proselytizing, proselytize we may, but with this crop to little effect, for at least by your own confession, politically only 16 of you call yourselves Democrats, 6 Republicans, 30 independents. So much for the great perceived monolithic RLS. In fact, we don't just teach them what to think, we do indeed teach them to think. And what next? Where will you take your gifts? How will you continue the odyssey here so hopefully begun? You will venture forth to 29 different colleges and universities scattered through 11 states and the District of Columbia. And before you begin your undergraduate odyssey, at least one of you, and maybe more of you, will pursue a gap year. So much about you, so much about what you have done, how you have tested yourselves, how you have occasionally tested us, how you have offered your gifts, and yet this does not begin to tell the tale of who you are or what you are to become. Thanks to your practically unanimous turnouts in support of various athletic teams and the infectious enthusiasm you have modeled for underclassmen, we have much to inspire us for years to come. We will, I hope, for a good time to come, be the school routinely known in the ISL for our always boisterous, usually clever, and occasionally irreverent school spirit and the unmatched solidarity of RL Nation. There are plenty of foxes to protect the den. You will be remembered as willing joiners and generous teammates, You will be remembered as simpatico fellow travelers who offered friendship freely and appreciated each other's particular perspectives and attributes. When something seemed wrong, you cared enough to signal concern about each other. In acknowledging yourselves how inclusive you have been, you signal an appreciation for the intimacy of this school and the enduring relationships forged here. You have come together nicely on behalf of the most important causes. You have legitimately boasted that you are a band of brothers, and especially you have been leaders in your willingness to engage with us as partners, in your ability to find a way to reach a desired goal, and in your determination to bring everyone in and never to leave a brother behind. My friends, there is ample evidence that you have been given much. You have known the unearned blessings of talents manifold. You have known families that have cared for you and about you. You have known the loving support of a school where your best lights have been given a chance to shine. You have caught a glimpse of your promise and your future and your responsibility. In much of what we have learned about public affairs this year, you have noticed how, as a nation, we could be better. You have a chance to make it so. Few of your generation have either the opportunity or the burden that you do. You have been trained well. You have been stretched and shaped. You have resisted and often relented. And now you are wiser, tougher, and I hope tenderer. For above all, in this place you have been loved. Of all the lessons you have learned here, of all that you value about your friendship so deep and various with beloved classmates and devoted teachers, remember that of all the reassurances you should have had, that is the most powerful. Remember that you are loved and that you have the capacity to do the same. That has never meant you were coddled or indulged. In fact, it means we cared so much about you that we were willing to tell you when you made a mistake or exhibited unwarranted hubris or acted like jerks. And we always look forward to your better selves. When you steal the hearts of new compatriots in college or wherever you will be this fall, when you decide how you will make a difference in the world, when you face difficult decisions, when you are tempted to be less than your best selves, let this be your bulwark and your strength. For a brief moment, you were in a place where you were known and loved, and where you were admonished repeatedly to do something great with your lives, to ensure your lives are meaningful and happy. Occasionally, in our affirming the values of RL and coming to different conclusions, we made you sad or even disappointed. But to your credit, and perhaps uniquely, you trusted us as we were to trust you. Together, we forged a viable community. Soon you will be gone from this sheltered bower and have the chance to realize some of that luminosity referred to in the second reading today. You will no longer simply bask in the glow of this radiant place, but it will indeed be your own lights that shine, fueled by integrity, fueled by principle, fueled by purpose, fueled by love. Do please keep the faith. There are 4 boys today who have been selected by the faculty to receive special recognition. The Richard A. Berenberg Prize. The Richard A. Berenberg Prize commemorates the generosity of spirit and concern for others which characterized the life of Dr. Richard A. Berenberg of the class of 1963. It was established by his father, a longtime member of our Board of Trustees, Dr. William Berenberg. In much of our literature and much of my own rhetoric, you have frequently heard that among our goals for RL boys is that you will go on to lead and serve. During our prize winner's 6 years in the school, he has offered a clinic on both. A gifted scholar, the Berenberg Prize winner suffers from a feast of interests. Already his academic selections emerge from a relentless curiosity about ideas, about the world, about social justice, about human nature. I'm not sure that any other senior has amassed the array of courses he has, including, along with the usual suspects of English, French, calculus, physics, chemistry, and biology, AP music theory, environmental science, AP economics, and this year split between contemporary global issues and race and gender. He is not just smart, but conscientious. Whatever success he achieves is a byproduct of his questing mind and capacious heart. One can sometimes miss his talent because he is relentlessly self-effacing, contemplative, and kind. In all quarters of school life, he has made a material difference by his responsible, avid, cheerful, inclusive approach. Whatever he does, he does well. In some cases, better than any schoolboy before him has done it. A perennial leader of the tech forces in the Smith Theater, he has literally shone a light on his schoolmates, allowing them to be seen and to shine. Even in less taxing commitments to jazz band, glee club, Model United Nations, and Tripod, the winner offered reliable, high-quality support. His penchant to serve, however, was no more apparent than in his role as super manager of both the varsity soccer and varsity basketball teams. He approached his role assiduously and comprehensively, offering support and data the likes of which his coaches had never seen. Coach Sugg, the dean of ISL soccer coaches, called him, quote, "the best manager we have ever had in 30 years, by a long shot. He was as essential a member of the team as anyone who appeared on the field," end quote. The winner's positive effect on all of us here is mimicked by his help on the Mayor's Youth Council and on behalf of the Boston Summer Jobs Program, as well as working to harvest urban gardens all over the city, providing food for the homeless and low-income families of Boston. As someone devoted to astronomy, he often looks to the stars for challenging puzzles, incremental changes, and their sheer wonder and beauty. For us to appreciate one of the most dazzling planets in our own cozy firmament, we did not have to look up, but simply radiate in the glow of this schoolboy star. The puzzler in me begs me to ask, when is a star not a star? To which I would confidently answer, when he is a cook. The Berenberg Prize goes indeed to Aidan Starling Cook. The Class of 1913 Award. The Class of 1913 Award is given annually to a member of the class who has made significant contributions to the life of the school. Quote, "Music gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything," end quote. Plato, the oldest member of our classics department, in this description seems to know our prize winner. He is alive with the sense of possibility that not only music affords, but living itself. I start with music, for that is where I believe that each day starts with our recipient. Just last week, he received the amazing news that he was named an ASCAP Award winner as one of the top 30 American composers under 30, a first for RL. A talented, persevering performer and composer, he has delighted all sorts of RL audiences over the years with creative expressions of his fertile imagination. To be creative at anything, as a writer, as an athlete, as a musician, usually means that one has spent plenty of time mastering the fundamentals. So much of our own curriculum is built on the idea that what you learn and how you learn it prepare you for more sophisticated forays later on, and especially give you the basis for satisfying play later on. Our prize winner has mastered the basics of scholarly engagement, earning straight A's in a range of demanding courses across the spectrum: Greek, calculus, English, biology, French, music theory. But he also has been a dazzling improviser, receiving the prosaic of his many passions and improvising a different outcome, one through which he speaks and which usually dazzles those lucky to be in his orbit. Throughout his time at the school, he has appeared in several of our dramatic productions. If not on stage as an especially expressive actor, he has assisted technically or even composed the incidental music that has accompanied a production. His talent as a writer, celebrated for his inventive, fluid, brilliant prose, served him well as an editor of both Tripod and Forum. He also, grâce à Dieu, served as co-president of the French Club and as a reliable baritone in the Glee Club. There he also often accompanied and composed a favorite piece performed last year, The Ferns at Night. So too has he been a catalytic performer on behalf of our chamber music program. Because we care most of all what kind of person a boy is, I finish this citation today by acknowledging that I believe there can be no better person in our school. Our prize winner is kind without being cloying, helpful without drawing attention, and loving without expecting anything in return. He goes home every night to a challenging responsibility and honors it without complaint. That he should do all that he does at our school, that he should offer friendship so freely and magnanimously, that he should affirm all of us by providing an example of how a human being ought to interact with his fellows in the world has been a blessing. And now then, I have the pleasure of announcing that this year's winner of the Class of 1913 prize is Jonathan Francis Weiss. The William Coe-Collar Award. And now we come to the final prize of these proceedings, the William Coe-Collar Prize, established in honor of the school's longest-serving headmaster, who taught at RL for 50 years, and who held office as headmaster from 1867 to 1907, and is often called the second founder. This award memorializes Dr. Collar's wide scholarship, his genius for teaching, his warmth and affection for his students, and his extraordinary service to the school. It is awarded to that member of the first class whose achievements and contributions to the school are deemed by the faculty as most deserving of recognition. The Coe-Collar Prize winner typically is someone who does it all and does it all well. This year's winner is no exception. His academic record is a thing of beauty. His final grades in grades 9 through 12 are all A's of one kind or another. Alas, of the 23 grades, 3 happen to be A minuses, but there also are 3 A pluses. While that tally may seem impressive, it is largely irrelevant compared to the kind of deep, penetrating, scholarly engagement that happens to result in those grades. Our winner is a poster child for our generalist philosophy, with a consistent spate of excellent reports across the spectrum, in languages, the sciences, and the arts. One of his teachers celebrates his, quote, piercing intellect, end quote. Another boasts, quote, he is serious yet colorful, analytical yet expressive, diligent yet creative, original in his approach and stylistic flair, but traditional in his sharp focus, end quote. Outside of the classroom, our main man has dazzled by the depth and breadth of his contributions, habitat builder, Glee Club baritone, MUN officer, and general factotum, Classics Club co-leader, Haley House coordinator, wrestling manager and sometime lightweight grappler, tech tutoring maven, and especially president of debate. That role is the result of his consistently impressive, dare I say, world-class performances at various debates stateside and abroad. His specialty is after-dinner speaking, and I would allow as those are just desserts. Brilliantly conceived and humorously delivered, earning him international laurels. As an art historian, he can see the beauty in things. He can imagine matters from numerous perspectives. He has not only been a stellar academician and energetic, effective joiner and leader, he has perhaps most important, been a true blue friend, offering his time and counsel freely and compassionately. All he does do well, but he is also good, loyal, empathic, generous, kind. Who could ask for anything more? The William Coe-Collar Prize goes this year to Avi Benjamin Attar. Please welcome from the great class of 1985 and the president of our Board of Trustees, Robert O'Connor.
Good morning. There are several people I would like to recognize this morning. But first, on behalf of my fellow trustees, I want to congratulate the Roxbury Latin class of 2020. You have achieved so much and left your mark on the school. We also congratulate your family and loved ones, those who nurtured you and entrusted you into the care of the school. Especially in these turbulent times, we have great hopes for you and look forward to seeing you build a better and more just future for your generation and the next. Finally, we welcome you as alumni of the Roxbury Latin School. Your life in the community does not end with graduation, and we hope that you will stay in touch with the school and become active in the Alumni Association. This morning, we bid farewell to 3 retiring members of the Board of Trustees. We say thank you to Pam Everhart, the mother of Hamilton, a graduate with the class of 2017. Pam has been an active and important member of the board. She has dedicated her time and talent to the Development Committee, the Strategic Planning Committee, and the 375th Anniversary Committee. She and her husband Carl have been leadership donors in the annual fund and have been important supporters of the Dennis Cannon Scholarship Fund. We are grateful to Pam for her love of the school and unwavering dedication of her time and talents. Ian O'Keefe has been a member of the Board of Trustees since 2014. A member of the great class of 1986, Ian has been a critical member of the Investment Committee and of the Development Committee, Athletic Facilities Committee, and Campus Planning and Operations Committee. Ian has long been a member of the Alumni Leadership Giving Council and a part of the Headmasters Council. He has been a longtime leadership donor to the annual fund and established the Ian and Catherine O'Keefe Scholarship Fund. Ian is also a supporter of the Dennis Cannon Scholarship Fund. Ian's family has deep connections to Roxbury Latin, and his father, Bill, a member of the class of 1957, served as trustee of the school for 30 years. Last year, Schoolhouse Field was renamed in honor of Bill and the entire O'Keefe family. We are grateful for Ian's investment insights and his unwavering dedication to the school. Finally, we say farewell to Joe Tango, the father of Jake, a graduate with the class of 2016. Joe is a perceptive member of the Finance Committee and formerly served as co-chair of the Development Committee. During his son's time at RL, Joe and his wife Elizabeth were the chairs of the Parent Fund. A reliable leadership donor to the annual fund, Joe established the Tango Family Unrestricted Fund and has been an important supporter of both the Sally Stevens Economics Fund and the Dennis Cannon Scholarship Fund. We will miss Joe's financial acumen and his kind sense of humor. We give thanks to our retiring trustees for their dedication and service to the school.
And now it is my pleasure to introduce the valedictorian elected by the class of 2020. Welcome, please, Avi Benjamin Attar.
Good morning, classmates, teachers, families, and especially uncles. My name is Avi Attar, and it's a source of tremendous honor and gratitude to be speaking to you today. As we come to the end of our time at Roxbury Latin, it feels only natural to reflect on the last few years. In particular, my mind keeps wandering back to our earliest days at the school. So please, let me briefly take you there. That first day, I was filled with the excitement of meeting new people, learning about my classes, and trying to discern if Blair's mustache could possibly be real. Beyond this excitement, however, I vividly recall one other feeling, an unsettling amalgam of confusion and fear. As we went class to class and met our teachers, many of them were saying things like, "Good morning, gentlemen," "Welcome to Roxbury Latin, gentlemen," and even, I hope you're ready for today's pop quiz, gentlemen. I was confused as to why my teachers kept calling us gentlemen, because when I looked at myself and around at my classmates, I saw pimply, scrawny, brace-faced middle schoolers. Consequently, I was afraid for 2 reasons. First, I was worried about my teacher's vision, and second, I was pretty sure there was something more to the fact that we kept getting called gentlemen. It would be easy to chalk it up to just another one of RL's wonderful little quirks, alongside the fact that we go to school in blizzards, call our cafeteria the refectory, and have an actual teacher named Mr. Quirk. But looking back, I think there was more to it. Gentleman is a term of respect, and it's certainly a lofty label to bestow upon 7th graders. Yet, for this very reason, being called gentleman perfectly captures the central, underlying fact of our time at RL. A deal of sorts, one that each of us struck up with the school the second we stepped foot on campus. It goes something like this. For 3 to 6 years, RL will satisfy our intellectual curiosities, provide eye-opening, passion-stoking opportunities, and offer love and care. Simply put, RL will treat you like a gentleman, and then some. In exchange, however, RL demands something from you. Emblazoned on the far wall of the refectory for us to look up at every day are the words, "From those to whom much has been given, much will be expected." Certainly, we ought to celebrate all that RL has given us, but I think we'd be remiss not to examine the second half of the deal, what has been expected from us. In my mind, these expectations have been far more influential than anything RL could have handed to us. My classmates and teachers know this well, and to the families of graduates, please take it at my word. Our time at RL has been hard. Much, indeed, has been expected from us. Academically, RL's rigor looked like bottomless piles of Latin flashcards and the Great Hall packed with Western Civ projects and the intimidating goop of the sludge lab. Extracurricularly, RL tested us with 12-hour days, where we showed up at 7:30 a.m. for Classics Club and didn't leave practice or rehearsal until 7:30 p.m., long after the sun had set and RL's bells had ceased their dystopian chiming for the day. Athletically, this difficulty manifested in hours of grueling basketball practice, for example, only to discover that Belmont Hill had recently recruited Michael Jordan. And socially, struggles came when just after we made the aforementioned deal, upon entry to RL, we each had to take a Tibetan monk's vow, never to talk to girls again. Between late nights of practices and homework, and early mornings at community service engagements and debate competitions, RL stretched out and sharpened each of us, setting the bar high and asking us to do hard things. For all that RL has given us, we have given ourselves in return. And standing here today, I think it's safe to say there was tremendous value in doing those hard things. Call me crazy, but John F. Kennedy, talking about the space race, eloquently proclaimed that we do things sometimes, quote, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. First, I'll admit it on the record right now. This quotation is evidence that yes, a Democrat once said something smart. More importantly, I think we can all agree that our time at RL has shown us the truth and wisdom of these words. Doing hard things gets you where you want to go, builds character along the way, and makes reaching the destination all the more fulfilling. There's something truly sweet about knowing you've fought hard, struggled valiantly, and done your best. That pride and satisfaction which stems from success, it comes only after hard work. Furthermore, each of us has grand and noble aspirations, visions we wish to see in the world and ways we hope to help others. Whatever those dreams may be, much hard work must go into realizing them, and there's no substitute for it. Classmates, I know you all to be good people. For this reason, I feel the need to make only one request in this speech. Please remember the challenges we faced at RL, and don't stop taking new ones head on. Though we have given much of ourselves thus far, we still have yet to repay many, many debts. And while after today, RL will stop explicitly asking us to do hard things, we will always have more trials to stare down and conquer. Which brings me to the present. As COVID-19 tears through the world, our lives look vastly different than we ever anticipated they would. We, the class of 2020, spent our senior spring in quarantine. Experiences like many of our senior projects, or even this very graduation, went virtual, relegated to underwhelming substitutes for the real thing. Worse yet, highly anticipated events like the senior dinner and our final concert disappeared off the calendar altogether. While acknowledging our own and our loved ones' health right now does go a long way, it doesn't fully account for the disappointment we're all feeling. Gratitude can't eliminate the sour sense that coronavirus robbed us of senior spring, the culmination of all our hard work. I wish I could summon forth more inspiring words, but frankly, this is hard, and I'm sorry. Luckily, RL has prepared us well for hard things, and we ought to remember that some good will come from this. I look forward to a time in the future when the present suffering around us is nothing more than a memory. When the tribulations of today have fostered in each of us resilience that we may rely on tomorrow. And when, at least, this isolation has gone on long enough that literally everyone knows how to bake banana bread. Until then, however, this virus will continue to be a huge deal. But right here, right now, we have years at RL to reflect on and celebrate, and lifetimes filled with joy, success, and yes, more hard things to look forward to. In the spirit of that belief, I have one last topic to touch on. Doing hard things is easier and more enjoyable when there are good people around you. So as I near the end of my speech, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the people who have made our time at RL so special. First, to our teachers, to all the adults in this community. You made the hard things we have done possible, and I know I speak for my whole grade in saying that we are beyond grateful for all that you have given us. You've been so much more than just educators and administrators. You've been our coaches, advisors, and friends. The teachers of this school have shaped us into not only the students, but also the people we are today. One last time, thank you. Second, to our families. As difficult as RL can be for its students, I know it can be similarly challenging for its families. Supporting an RL boy through the ups and downs of being a student is a tall order for sure. And all of our work has hinged on your dedication. Family is the ultimate cheerleading squad, and God knows we need some cheerleaders at RL. So once again, thank you. Third, and last but certainly not least, to the class of 2020. You guys made the hard things fun. It might sound glib, but I couldn't have asked for a better group of 52 people to go through high school with. The social dynamics of this grade haven't always been simple or effortless, but truthfully, that's what makes us such an awesome bunch. It's no secret that we're a motley crew. Our grade contains an eclectic mix of colorful personalities, impressive talents, and idiosyncratic interests. Embracing these differences, we've coalesced into a tight-knit grade, comprised of good friends and close confidants. It's sad to consider, but a year from now we'll be scattered about, at colleges across the country or in living rooms across the greater Boston area. Either way, from here on out, our paths will start diverging. One day, these memories will fade, and those red brick buildings that have been our lives for the last years will be nothing more than specks in our rearview mirrors. Even so, I have full faith that the bonds we forged in the fiercely burning, yet oh so warm flames of Roxbury Latin will live on. Classmates, out of all the hard things we've done, saying goodbye to this chapter of our lives together is the hardest by far. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. Thank you for everything.
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Lonely the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the martyr. Out of the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land. Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won.
Selecting a graduation speaker is an important assignment. My priority at RL is to find someone, a family member in many cases, who knows RL well and is familiar also with the graduating class. In this year's speaker, we have a trifecta: alumnus, father, and trustee. It's my pleasure to introduce the president of the Board of Trustees, my former student and longtime friend, Bob O'Connor of the great class of '85. Bob had a wonderful RL experience, during which he had distinguished himself as a leader and as a full-throttle participant in a host of activities. A fine scholar, he served as his class's perennial representative to the Student Discipline Committee, as president of the Glee Club, and as editor-in-chief of the yearbook. He also performed in plays and in the Latonic's predecessor, the Small Group, and was part of a remarkable gaggle of creative, arts-oriented types who concocted and produced various impressive productions. He consistently managed to be both eminently respected and liked by both his schoolmates and his teachers. Ani went to Wesleyan University, at which he earned a degree in psychology, and then to Georgetown University Law School, at which he earned his law degree. Ever since, he has practiced the law, first at Hill and Barlow, and for the past several years at Piper Rudnick, at which he has earned a reputation as one of the city's foremost commercial real estate attorneys. Bob's devotion to his school is longstanding. A longtime alumni volunteer, he was elected to the Board of Trustees in 2006. In 2015, he was named president of the board. During his time on the board, Bob has been especially attentive to such unenviable assignments as serving on the audit committee, as well as attending to our physical evolution in his leadership of the Buildings and Grounds Committee and the Athletic Renovations Task Force. The author of the revised bylaws, he also has served nobly as a member of the Committee on Trustees and as board secretary. Bob is a man to be trusted. He loves the school. He has sent his own wonderful son, Liam, here, and he has done whatever he could to help us realize our noble mission. In sum, he is the kind of leader-servant that we would want all our students to grow up to be. Please welcome the president of the Board of Trustees, Bob O'Connor.
Good morning, everyone. On a sunny August day in 1994, I made my way to the crypt of the Capuchin monks in Rome. I was traveling with my friend Elias. We had just graduated from law school, and we were traveling in Europe. We discovered pretty quickly that we were not ideally matched traveling companions. This was my first time outside of the United States, and I wanted to see everything in the guidebooks. Elias had traveled frequently and had been to many places in Europe. He wanted to sit in cafes, stroll the boulevards, and soak up the atmosphere. But we were great friends, and so we had no problem separating in the mornings and then getting back together in the evening. In Rome, I had raced to many of the churches and historic sites that I had learned about in my Western civilization class with Mr. Jarvis. I loved seeing in person the art and architecture that we had read about. As Elias and I prepared to leave Rome, I searched my guidebook to be sure I had not missed anything. I read about the Capuchin crypt. I was shocked. I was intrigued, and I decided to go. On that final sunny day, I entered the crypt. It was comprised of a series of very small chapels decorated with the bones of generations of deceased friars. On one wall, an inscription read, "As you are now, we once were. As we are now, you will be." As I looked around the crypt, I felt a little strange. I was not shocked or afraid. It was a peaceful place. But I felt a little anxiety about my own limited time on earth. When I was at Roxbury Latin, Mr. Jarvis spoke frequently from this podium of the impermanence of our earthly life, that not one of us can count the number of his days, that we should each examine our life, confront deep questions, and live a meaningful life. These ideas came to me in a powerful way on that day. And I had another powerful feeling in that moment, a feeling of sudden connection with a specific future and past, a feeling of time travel. Not the time travel of science fiction books, but a feeling of connection between two moments in time, of simultaneous overlapping experiences. In that moment, I felt immediately connected with a person who 100 years before pondered deep questions about his human life, and spoke directly to me, standing in the crypt in 1994 with my guidebook in hand. As you are now, we once were. A philosopher in the fullness of life, speaking not just to a general future, but specifically to me. And in that moment, I took his words as a warning. As we are now, you will be. My time on earth is limited. I should use my time wisely. I have that time travel feeling now, speaking to you here from Rumineer Hall. On a sunny morning in June 1985, I sat in one of these seats in front of the hall, listening to the speakers at graduation. I can remember distinctly how I felt. A little bored, a little relieved at finally having made it through RL with its relentless demands. A little anxious at the prospect of leaving a place I felt I had finally figured out. A little sad at the thought I may never again have the same close relationships with my RL friends. A little excited at the prospect of getting away from my family, whom I loved, but who drove me crazy. I wondered what future would hold for me. Would I do all right in college? Would I make close friends? Would I figure out what I wanted to do with my life? What crises would I face, and how would I deal with them? I thought I would spend a few minutes and give you a report from the future. I suppose I am really taking this opportunity to report back to my 18-year-old self. I'd also like to give you a report from the past. My grandfather graduated from the Roxbury Latin School. He also sat through commencement day speakers on a day in June 1913 at the old school on Kearsarge Avenue in Roxbury. My grandfather's name was Jack Rooney. He grew up in Jamaica Plain. His father, William Rooney, owned a shoe store on Center Street in Jamaica Plain, William Rooney Boots and Shoes, which he opened in 1878. My grandfather entered Class 6 in 1908. Mr. Heaton found a brief autobiographical essay my grandfather wrote when he was in Class 4. In this essay, my grandfather wrote that he barely passed algebra, and he got through Latin by the skin of his teeth. He concluded his Class 4 autobiography by writing, "I don't know what I will be when a man, but think I would like to teach English and history." I also found Roxbury Latin to be a struggle. The volume of work was overwhelming, and in the early years, my attention wandered. Mr. Jarvis was my advisor for most of my time at RL, and I went to great lengths to avoid him. He frequently caught me hurrying by his office door. He would urge me to try harder, demand more of myself. Here is an excerpt from one of his mid-year advisor letters to my parents. Bobby's paper in French was a disaster. Poorly organized, excessive examples, good ideas lost in the muck of bad grammar. He went on to write, "I would not call his teacher comments glitteringly positive. I hope Bobby will go all out this spring to end on the best possible note." My grandfather and I each struggled at the Roxbury Latin School, but we each persisted and we each graduated, he in June 1913 and me in June 1985. My grandfather went on to Harvard where he studied chemistry, and then World War I broke out, and he enlisted in the Army in 1917. He was just a little older than you are now. He had never left home except to go to school across the river in Cambridge. And before finishing his degree, he found himself in military service in one of the most devastating wars we have known. From basic training, here's what he wrote on March 15, 1917, from Camp Dix in New Jersey. "Dear Pa, suppose everything is the same at home, but believe me, it seems to me as though I've been away for a month. Off and on, I begin to think how good it would seem to be walking up Burroughs Street again. And then I remember that I've only been away a few days and think how silly I am. Everything is so new and for the time, so strange. I suppose that it brings a feeling of lonesomeness and fondness for the old life to which I have been so accustomed. I vividly remember driving with my parents to Wesleyan University in August 1985, the car packed with my stuff, saying goodbye to them. I remember the first weeks of school, meeting new people, eating new food, taking classes at far-flung locations across campus, some with hundreds of students. Who were these people who seemed so different from me? Who seemed only to want to party or outdo one another? No professor knew me or seemed to care to know me. What was I doing here? Had I picked the wrong school? What did I want to do with my life? It may seem strange to compare myself entering college to my grandfather entering military service in World War I. Of course, they are not comparable. And yet, I felt that loneliness, homesickness, and out-of-place feeling my grandfather expressed. I also felt that I was entering a world on the verge of chaos. In the late 1980s, I did not think we were in imminent risk of war, but I was anxious about the proliferation of nuclear weapons and their destructive power. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster happened the spring of my freshman year in 1986. One of the largest sudden stock market crashes occurred 6 months later, on Black Monday. The world felt on edge as students protested en masse, demanding the university divest its interests in companies that profited from the racist apartheid regime in South Africa. On that Roxbury Latin graduation day in the spring of 1985, my family, friends, and teachers spoke excitedly about my promising future and the exciting adventure that awaited me in college. And in the fall of 1985, I felt out of place and anxious about the future. So what happened? What happened to Jack Rooney and to me after our RL graduations? Well, my grandfather finished basic training, was sent to France, and served in the medical corps. Armistice was signed near the end of 1918, and he received his honorable discharge in May 1919. He returned home and began his career as a research chemist in the shoe industry. He developed a process to manufacture a single sole for men's boots, married Dora Klexton, started the Travelite Rubber Company, won lucrative military contracts during World War II, bought a mansion on Elliott Street in Jamaica Plain, had 4 children, Klexton, the RL class of 1947, John, Theodora, that's my mother Pippi, and Barbara, who was born with serious intellectual and physical disabilities. He lived the life of a well-to-do Boston businessman and hosted parties at his house attended by the likes of Mayor James Michael Curley. And then technology for manufacturing boots and shoes changed. He lost contracts and was forced to close his business. He sold his mansion and moved to a modest 3-bedroom home on LaGrange Street here in West Roxbury, and worried about what would happen to his disabled daughter, my Aunt Barbara, after he was gone. He died in 1974 and left enough money to provide modestly for my aunt's needs for the rest of her life. He had lived through multiple world wars, a pandemic, the Great Depression, social unrest. He had a devoted wife, vibrant family, a wide circle of friends, and he closed a failing business, sold a beloved home, lost fair weather friends, and always worried about the future of his disabled daughter. My grandfather was a survivor. There were good times and there were difficult times. He persisted. I remember him toward the end of his life as a smiling, kind, and jovial old man. And what about me? What happened after that graduation day in June 1985? Well, as with my grandfather, there have been good times and there have been difficult times. There are too many stories to tell here, but I did make great lifelong friends in college, where I felt liberated academically, free to study a wide variety of subjects that captured my interest, and I struggled to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I worked for 2 years after college and then went to law school, still trying to keep my options open. It was an unsettled time. And then in law school, the most unexpected and the most fortuitous thing happened. I met and fell in love with Kathleen Phelps. We graduated school in a financial downturn, moved to Boston, got law firm jobs, got married in her hometown of Waterloo, Iowa, and worked relentless hours, nights, and weekends. And then in December of 2001 and September of 2003, I experienced the most profound moments of my life: the birth of our children, Liam and Bridget. I found that it is true what others had said. The love you have for your children is powerful and particular. You know your parents love you, but you do not really know the depth and intensity of it until you become a parent. I sometimes look into the faces of my children now, really, they are young adults, and can simultaneously see their infant faces. Another time travel experience. Well, in the spring of 2002, I became a partner at my law firm. Kathleen and I enjoyed parenthood, and we had a vibrant life with family and friends. Things were good. But then, 6 months later, in the fall of 2002, my law firm closed its doors after 106 years. I was panicked. I was a new partner with no clients of my own and with a young family. And shortly after this time, my father struggled with heart disease, diabetes, and a host of other challenges requiring frequent emergency hospitalizations. And my mother slowly descended into the confusion of Alzheimer's disease. In one moment, I found myself talking with my father in the emergency room about his final wishes. And in another, I held my mother's hand as she fought the pneumonia that ultimately took her life. I felt barely able to keep my head above water, struggling to meet the pressing demands of my profession, children, and sick parents. Through it all, I was supported by my family and friends in ways I never could have anticipated. Many of those friends were my Roxbury Latin classmates, the young men who sat next to me on that sunny morning in June 1985. And so here we are now at graduation at the Roxbury Latin School in June of 2020. We are in the middle of a global pandemic, unable to be with each other physically. We are seeing in our country a widespread outpouring of pain and anger over persistent racial injustice. The world feels chaotic and unpredictable, violent and unjust. What would I say to my 18-year-old self sitting at graduation? And what do I want to say to you? This is what I want to say. Do not be afraid. We all live through good times and difficult times, and we are all the descendants of survivors. My grandfather persisted and found opportunity in chaotic times. Before him, his ancestors fled famine in Ireland and struggled to create a life in America. You may know stories of how your own family survived war, natural disaster, oppression, or persecution. And there are so many stories of survival and persistence stretching back through our family histories, back deep in time, that we do not know. Every generation faces uncertainty, moments of chaos, and crises. We survive, we persist, we take strength from our friends and families, we celebrate life, the birth of our children, their first steps, their birthdays, their athletic, artistic, and academic achievements, their graduation from high school, and their transition to adulthood, to independence. Every generation of Roxbury Latin graduates for 375 years has stood where you now stand with excitement and anxiety about the future. Every generation of Roxbury Latin graduates for 375 years has faced the prospect of an uncertain, chaotic world. They persevered. They fought for their country or made scientific discoveries, or started businesses, or fought for justice, or taught students, or served the public, or started families. They lived their lives. They survived and passed on their love and knowledge to the next generation. When I stood in the Capuchin crypt in Rome in 1994, I read those words, "As you are now, we once were. As we are now, you will be." And I thought then about the finitude of life and its preciousness. Now, these many years later, I remember those words and think about the great continuity of generations of our human family. The monk who wrote those words did not merely meditate upon them alone in his cell. He wrote them for me to read generations later. I see this as a loving act, one that celebrates life. We don't talk about the school motto so much anymore. It remains mortui vivos docent, the dead teach the living. This is the loving act to which the Roxbury Latin School has dedicated itself. We believe in you, the next generation. It is the great undertaking of our lives to pass on our knowledge, wisdom, and experiences, and our love to you. I can think of no one better suited to survive, to find opportunities, and to cause change in this uncertain time than you, the graduates of the Roxbury Latin class of 2020. You have struggled. You have learned to work hard, to persist, to be flexible and creative, to thrive in a diverse community. You have the love and support of your family and your community. We have passed to you, as best as we have been able, our knowledge, experience, and our love. You will have them forever. We have confidence that you too will survive, persist, and thrive, and that you will pass on your knowledge, your wisdom, and your experiences to the next generation, and that they will do the same for the next, and then they for the next, down through time.
Whose hand hath
Thank you for the model of your service and your words of wisdom. And now, Mr. President, it is my joy to present to you the class of 2020 to receive their diplomas. Usually I ask everyone in attendance to hold your applause until all the names are called, but you can applaud wildly this year. Avi Benjamin Attar. Ian Luca Balaguerra. Joseph Michael Barrett. Colin Robert Bergstrom. David Roman Brennan. Matthew Joseph Callawert. Matthew Michael Safale, Jr. Nicholas Anthony Chawan. John William Cloherty. Edward Francis Conley. Aiden Starling Cook. Reed Fisher Corliss. Jonaker Juan Cruz. Dante Donato Cuzzi. John Joseph DeMarco. Luke Jerome Donovan. Ajiro Ogene Osasenega Ego Dagbare. Cameron Tabish Estrada. Lucas Towns Franken. Samuel Elliott Ginsberg. Sebastian Graber Adamsons. John Gerald Harrington. Richard Impert, Jr. Reese Elliott Johansson Gordet. Michael Kenneth Jones. Evan Kiselev. David Harley LaFond. Christian Roger Landry. Peter Francis Lavangi III. Eric Ma. Austin Stanley Manning. Cameron Alexander Miller. Hari Narayanan. Liam Phelps O'Connor. Ian Ross Richardson. Jack Philip Ringel. Javier Luis Rios. Antonio Luis Rosado. Jeremiah O'Sullivan Rose. Joseph Patrick Ryan. Jacob Richard Shear. Timothy Paul Smith. Michael Alexander Stankovich. Kevin Joseph DeBarros Swan. Matthew Joseph Trietti. Peter Shea Turo. Nathaniel Akekalu Yukoa. Jonathan Francis Weiss. Charles Rutledge Weitzel. Andrew Zhang. Blair Zhou. Christopher Grant Zhu. Congratulations to the class of 2020. Would you all please stand? Following the benediction, would you all please remain standing in silence while the school bell is tolled in order to commemorate the conclusion of Roxbury Latin's 375th year. 3, 7, 5. O God of all seasons and of all generations, bless those assembled today, young and old, masters and scholars, benefactors and stewards of this old school. Keep us mindful of our special calling. Keep us grateful for our abundant gifts. Keep us loyal to this numinous place, in order that in our lives' work we may continue to hear your persistent admonition to lead and to serve, to give witness and to love. Bless especially the boys of the class of 2020. Bless them as they go forth from this place. Give them wisdom and give them courage as they seek to do good in their lives. And remind them always that from those to whom much has been given, much will be expected. Shower them with your love, protect them as they let their light shine ever more brilliantly, and return them to us from time to time to this place where they were known and loved. Amen.
Days of